or how EU has been leading the entire plastic packaging discussion globally. So I think those interventions which the Indian government is doing on the EPR notification or even through the plastic waste management tools are quite noticeable to the international community, especially because it is not just designed to talk about the recycling part. It is not just designed for end of life. It's actually designed to consider a lot of aspects which is upstream, which is looking at the design changes, which is offering industry a lot of, I would say, benefits when they actually look at the changes in their processes, when they talk about not just reduce, recycle, but now putting on the policy tools which can help the industry to actually, or maybe certain takers who have already gone ahead and they're doing percentage of recycled content or at least reuse. So how can these things design a product which is designed from the circular economy kind of shift and also make changes which are kind of systemic intervention. So I think that's a big change which the way Indian government has of course looked at in terms of framing this. Then I think in this year the other remarkable bit has been the single-use plastic ban notification which has come. A lot of industry has got impacted. There are so many things happening, state, local, plus a lot of discussions. But I think what is also important again, it relates to that all of us do feel that there are areas, there are interventions, starting from information based, starting from standards, like a lot of prominence has been given around biodegradable or compostable. So I think those things are there. Not everything has a solution, but what is important is that the priorities have been put forward. It's part of the ban notification of things are being considered under the EPR bit as well. So I think that's where at least there is a lot of policy interventions that we have seen. Coming to the project Circular Economy Solutions Preventing Marine Litter, we will go into a bit details as well, but looking at the entire design of this workshop, I would just touch on two aspects. So the project is of course funded from the German Environment Ministry, and in India we implemented with the Indian Ministry of Environment. So we have interventions which are designed at a national level. So if you talk about the Ministry of Environment, which is our key counterpart agency, we're working with them on implementing the plastic waste rules and also looking at supporting them on the EPR part. So working very closely with the CPCB on actually setting up the EPR portal, which I think a lot of you have already done. At least somewhere or the other you have been involved with the EPR portal as well. On the other hand, with the Ministry of Environment, this entire single-use plastic ban, we also put them on the implementation of this ban enactment. So that's, I think, nationally the work that we have been doing. Coming to the state level, the three priority states that we have, again, identified with the Ministry of Environment is two coastal states, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And UP being close to Ganges, that's the area where we have kind of looked at least in setting up structures of how do you kind of support the state governments on taking some action. So considering that, I think with this kind of framework that we were given, we of course look at interventions which can bring changes on the ground, which is whether capacity issues, whether infrastructure setup, or even looking at the policy implementation. And thirdly, as I said, with the private sector, now you need a lot of discussions which are both looking at B2B or discussions around standards, discussions around product optimization, or even in terms of implementing those things on the ground and kind of creating, facilitating those kind of tie-ups. So that's the area where this project has been looking at. In Kerala, we did this planning workshop, and now we are on that way of kind of taking one by one steps, working with the state government, but also working in the Trivandrum Municipal Corporation, closely with them to actually look at identifying certain interventions that can be done. And there is a showcase now, how do we actually make changes on the ground and demonstrate things which can bring change. So yeah, I think with that, as I mentioned, a lot of systemic interventions required, especially coming back to this point I highlighted earlier, the international or the coastal beach cleanup day actually brings this recognition again that on one side you can actually make interventions where you can do more and more cleanups, but the other hand, of course, you need policy enforcement strictly on the ground where single-use plastic littering or avoidance practices are taken up by the consumers, by the industry, by all the stakeholders who are involved. So that's the vision, and I think the discussions today have been structured in a way where we highlight both these areas very clearly, and the State Pollution Control Board man is here. We're going to take up these discussions into more kind of proactive and in this way, so that we can actually kind of consider which are elements of prime importance and how do we actually bring discussions around this narrative. So that's the idea, and I welcome you all again, and over to you, Vivek, for the discussion.